like you said.
I saw this face, this vision. You were perfect.
Life goes easy on me.
It was the moment of my life.
Can't take my eyes off of you.
You came to, you said, hello, stranger.
What a floozy.
Can't take my eyes off of you.
I love you. I love everything about you.
Eyes off of you.
You're wonderful.
Don't ever forget it.
Good.
Come here.
Whoa. Don't kiss straight.
Not the door.
I don't want trouble.
I want trouble.
You're taken.
Kiss me.
What are you, 12? My boyfriend's here.
Is he?
There.
He's very pretty.
She's very tall.
Did you have sex with him?
Yes.
Is he good? Answer the question!
Why are you doing this?
Did you ever love me?
I'm waiting for you.
Do what?
Leave me.
I totally love you. What is this?
You're lying. I've been... You're scared.
Are you flirting?
Maybe. Why did you swear eternal love when all you wanted was excitement? Love bores you.
No. It disappoints me. You women don't understand the territory. Because you are the territory.
It's not a rule.
I find it kind of amusing that Natalie Portman says that Julia Roberts is tall when you literally had a scene before that where Jude Law and Julia Roberts are kissing, and he's literally taller than her to the point where he's holding the back of her head, and his hand is literally bigger than her head at that point. I mean, I don't know. I found that kind of amusing, but and also we're 67% through the Jude Law movies of 2004 with 5 weeks to go in 2004, so we're halfway there, folks. We're halfway there. In this movie, he plays a smart but ineffectual journalist named Dan who can't decide between his girlfriend, a loving but clinging waitress Alice, played by Natalie Portman, or his lover, cold but intellectual photographer Anna, played by Julia Roberts. Herself indecisive between Dan and honest but thuggish Dr. O'Leary, played by Clive Owen, and the film puts the four leading characters into a box and strips them apart. So basically, instead of a love triangle, it's a love square at this point, because, you know, Clive Owen is Jude Law's cheating on Natalie Portman with Julia Roberts. Clive Owen is cheating on Julia Roberts with Natalie Portman. Basically that. It's based off of a play of the same name, the playwright, Patrick Marber, actually wrote the script for this, and it's been seen as kind of a modern and tragic version of Wolfgang Amadeus's Kussi van Toot opera from 1790, with references to the opera in both the plot and the soundtrack. And the film itself is really, really good. It reminds me a lot of Eyes Wide Shut, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like Eyes Wide Shut times 2, except this time around it's more... I mean, there's more intrigue and more deception, because it's not just two people that are being hurt by what's going on in their situation, but it's four different people going through all four of these different situations, and it makes for a really engaging, like I said, love square, and you've got four really talented actors to make this work. You know, Julia Roberts, Jude Law, Natalie Portman, Clive Owen. Both Portman and Owen actually got Academy Award nominations for this, their first ever, and it's funny when you watch that trailer and you see, you know, Oscar winner Julia Roberts, Oscar nominee Jude Law, and then you see just Natalie Portman and Clive Owen. This changed their whole thing altogether, but with the Academy Awards. But the film is really, really good. It's a really good love square, love conflict situation between these characters. And I gotta say, man, Natalie Portman is just, man, it doesn't matter what kind of hair you give her. You can give her a red hair, you can give her a blonde wig, you can give her just a regular black hair. That girl's beautiful in this movie, man. Like, she's incredible. She's beautiful to look at. And she gives one of the strongest performances of the movie. And it's no wonder why she is she's one of the things you'll always remember from the movie because she really is giving it her all in this movie. This is a movie where I think really elevated her to the next level of her superstardom. Because, Garden State came out the same year, and I really like Garden State, but this is probably one of my favorite performances from Portman in this movie. But Julia Roberts, Clive Owen, Jude Law, they're all great in the film as well. Clive Owen I also thought was really good too. Julia Roberts and Jude Law maybe are kind of the weaker aspects in terms of the cast in general, but they're not bad by any means necessary. They're still very good actors in this. And most notably, this is a nice return to form from Mike Nichols, who was kind of a little bit of a lull after what is around this time before this, because he made stuff like some movies that weren't spectacular, like Regarding Henry, Primary Colors, What Planet Are You From? He would occasionally have that one spark here and there with something like Working Girl, Postcards from the Edge, Wolf, The Birdcage. And he did his career with two great movies. This one and then Charlie Wilson's War a couple years later, also with Julia Roberts in it. And also he had Angels in America the year before. So this was kind of the last gasp before he essentially retired from film and then later passed away. Because I think he died in 2014. So, yeah, it's a really good movie, a really intense thriller, a really good romantic drama. It's a really good movie with a lot of good performances all around. Just a really good thriller of a film. It's a really engaging film. Definitely a movie that I really like a lot. I do recommend it easily. Closer. Definitely check it out. So with that said, let's move on to our next movie, and that is House of Flying Daggers.
Producer of Crouching Tiger. It's a film critics are calling spectacular, beautiful, astonishing. House of Flying Daggers.
And a great year for Zhang Yimou, who had two really great martial arts movies in 2004, Heroes, and Hero, excuse me, not Heroes, not the CD show, the Jet Li movie Hero, which we talked about already, and House of Flying Daggers, where in this movie, during the reign of the Tang Dynasty in China, a secret organization called the House of Flying Daggers rises and opposes the government. A police officer called Leo sends Officer Jin to investigate a young dancer named Mei, claiming that she has ties to the Flying Daggers. Leo arrests Mei, only to have Jin break her free in a plot to gain her trust and lead the police to the new leader of the secret organization. But things are more complicated than they seem. But the martial arts sequences are going to look spectacular. This is made by the same people that were the producers behind Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, so you know exactly what you're going to get when you go into this movie, and it really does work very well. But it's not really a martial arts movie. It actually is an engaging story that is more story-driven than you would think. I think Hero works well because of the visual effects and the action sequences. The visuals and the action sequences are great in this movie, but it's really the love story between the two main characters that I think works very well here. I think they're both very well, handled very well here. You've got Andy Lau and also Zhang Ziyi, who would later star in Memoirs of a Geisha the following year. And then she was also in Rush Hour 2, which was the movie that kind of launched her into the stratosphere with the American public. And she's a really good actress and doesn't really get a whole lot of great movies anymore. Like, she does a couple movies here and there, like she was in The Grandmaster, but other than that, she doesn't really do a whole lot of movies here in the U.S. anymore. Mostly doing movies back in China, but the movie is very impressive to look at. It's a visual splendor to look at. It has a lot of the great things that made movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Hero the great movies that they are. And it has an engaging storyline that works because you do get attached to the three main characters in here. They have a lot of good storylines to tell. There's a lot of good aspects to the film. It's a really impressively put together film that really works on a number of different levels. It's a movie I do recommend checking out. One that you probably have not heard of too much, but definitely worth a watch. House of Flying Daggers. So let's move on to our last movie, and that is I Am David.
Come on, I just want you to know that you're safe here, and that everything will be all right.
Introducing Ben Tiver. And starring Golden Globe winner and Academy Award nominee Joan Plowright, Marie Bonnevie, and Jim Caviezel. All alone. Discovering a world he's never known. A boy who would never stop searching for home.
I am David. I know, David. I know.
I Am David.
Hello, I'm David. If you don't know what I'm talking about, ASD of movie, check that clip out. But this is I Am David, and boy, did that trailer look like one of those That didn't even look like a real movie, quite honestly. It looked like a fake movie trailer, like you see in like you would see at the beginning of Tropic Thunder. Like you almost expect to see Robert Downey Jr. and Tobey Maguire in that situation, doing the same parody they did for the church movie they did for Tropic Thunder. In that, I mean, it did not look like a real movie. Is what I'm trying to say here, but it's a real movie, and believe it or not, the director on there, as the light started dimming on me while I'm trying to get to the synopsis, the director on this movie is someone you might be familiar with, and that is Paul Feig. That, of course, is the man that gave us Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy, Ghostbusters, Simple. Why can't I remember the name? A Simple Favor. Good Lord, I love this movie, A Simple Favor, and I can't even remember the title. But he also did Last Christmas, a bunch of other movies, a bunch of more mainstream movies. But you wouldn't believe that this was his first movie as a director. Feature director, I should say. But in this movie, you have a 12-year-old named David who escapes from a communist concentration camp with little more than a compass, a sealed letter, and a loaf of bread, and instructions to carry the letter to Copenhagen, Denmark. David is thrust into the free world for the first time as he travels across Europe, his spiritual voyages of discovery, where David slowly loses his instinctive mistrust of humanity and begins to smile, share, trust, and ultimately love, addressing the cruelties, politics, and suffering of warfare while celebrating the unbreakable spirit of a child. This literally sounds like a movie that's an Oscar bait film in general, but I can't really say anything about this movie too much because, honestly, I've never seen this movie before, and I had no idea that it was directed by Paul Feig, and the fact that this was the movie that basically began his film career as a whole. But, yeah, other than that, though, there's really not much more I can say about this film. What am I saying? There's nothing really more I can say about this movie because I haven't... See, I'm getting my words mixed up here. I was about to say, nothing more that I could say that's already been said already, but I haven't seen this movie, so I don't know what the general consensus is from the general public about this film in general is, but, how many times can I say general? But, all I know is that Rotten Tomatoes did not give this the best reviews overall. In fact, it got really panned by critics when it came out, and it didn't really make much of a dent to the box office, and was pretty much largely forgotten in general. And I honestly, watching that trailer, I could kind of see why, because this kid who plays the title character never did another film after this. So, yeah, that should pretty much tell you everything you need to know about this film. But who knows? Maybe it actually is much better than people give it credit for. But I sincerely doubt it. I've never heard anybody really ever talk about it, so I'm just going to say that it probably isn't that great of a movie to begin with. So, yeah, not much more to say about that one. That is I Am David.
Yep, I want my money back. The money that your friend stole from me. $160 million with interest. I'm not the only person in the world looking for Ocean's 11.
Huh. We need a job. We need a high-paying job.
Now we're too hot to work anywhere in this country.
Where are we going?
You're doing recon work on our anniversary?
Tez.
And you are Mr.
Miguel Diaz. What's your name?
Craig.
Greg. Let me ask you something. Do you have safe deposit boxes here?
It's not my nature to be mysterious.
But I can't talk about it, and I can't talk about why.
Ooh. I'd really like to play a more central role this time around.
Okay, I don't even understand what happened in there. What did I say?
The next time I see you, I'm arresting you.
That means yes. Well, you better hear.
I want it all back.
Okay. Because I have a whole network.
Get out of my car.
Thank you.
How you doing? You doing all right?
Oh, feel great. For a dead man.
Okay, good.
Now, you told me that he called it Ocean 11. Now, who decided that?
That's a good point.
You're going to have to play a small role in this thing.
Small role. Who am I supposed to be?
Well,
What are we stealing?
What the hell was that?
Yeah, I'm with Krusty the Clown there. What the hell was that? I don't think even the movie knows what it's trying to do here. I think that last line by George Clooney perfectly sums up this movie's entire existence. What are we stealing? What are we doing here again? Nothing about that trailer makes any sense whatsoever. But you know what? It's a perfect representation of the movie that we have here, because, man, talk about a bad sequel. This is one of those sequels that doesn't seem bad on paper, but when you really delve into what this movie is, when you watch it in general, you could just tell. This was around that time. This was just one of those sequels that was only made because the first movie was a success, and we need to make another one. This was around that time when Warner Brothers did that with a number of their sequels to movies that were hits in the years past. We analyze that. The whole 10 Yards. We're going to have Miss Congeniality 2 in a couple of months. But, and this is another one here. This is definitely another one of those movies. So, because that trailer doesn't really give you an idea of what the hell is going on here, maybe the premise itself here can tell us. It's been 3 years since Danny Ocean and his crew, fronted by detail man Rusty Ryan, up-and-coming pickpocketer licensed Caldwell, explosives expert Bashir Tarr, and safecracker Frank Catton, pulled off one of the most audacious and lucrative heists in history, robbing ruthless entrepreneur Terry Benedict of every dime store in his impenetrable Las Vegas vault. After splitting the $160 million take, each of the infamous Ocean's crew have tried to go straight, lay low, and live a legit life. But that's proven to be a challenge, much to the chagrin of Danny's wife, Tess, when somehow breaks rule number 1 and rats them out to Benedict. Going straight is no longer an option. He wants his $160 million back with interest, or else. And the gang quickly discovers Benedict isn't the only person in the world looking for Ocean's 11. Plot still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In fact, that's basically a perfect representation of the film itself. It was still a success. It only made about $60 million less than the first movie did, but then again, this movie was not that expensive to begin with as a whole. I mean, yeah, you got all these big stars in here, but the budget could not have been that big whatsoever on this movie. In fact, I'm going to check just to make sure. Maybe it's a little bit more than I thought, $110 million, but hey, it made $125 million, so at least it made its budget back. But when you look at this movie, everything that could go wrong with this movie could go wrong. This is often considered one of the worst sequels ever made. Entertainment Weekly called it one of the 25 worst sequels ever made. And even though Steven Soderbergh himself has said that it's his favorite of the 3 Oceans films, which, really, Steven? Really? And it really basically sums up the problems with the movie, because it starts off way too slow. You got this uber-long scene with Brad Pitt and Catherine Zeta-Jones that really does not go anywhere except to introduce Zeta-Jones' character to the film, and not to mention, the introductions to all the main cast in this movie is just dull and tedious. And again, the main plot of this movie does not really make a whole lot of sense either. Andy Garcia's character from the first movie wants the people who robbed him in the first movie to pay him back his $160 million plus interest that they stole from him. Okay, it's basically sequelitis. It's the same plot as the first movie, but okay, that's fine. And then it becomes a revenge plot over somebody else called the Night Fox, who has stolen the one thing that can't keep these guys out of jail. And, okay. And then Danny comes across the same thief, and he challenges Danny to steal a Fabergé egg, which... Are you sticking with this? Because I'm having a lot of trouble sticking with this. And then Danny's wife, Tess, gets involved by pretending to be, and I'm not even kidding about this, a pregnant Julia Roberts, which was only done solely because Roberts was pregnant in real life at the time, and the script had to be worked around that. And how can it get any stupider than this? Bruce Willis shows up. He gets involved in this somehow, and then by the end, they basically just pull a Deus Ex Machina where everything is fixed and everyone lives happily ever after. What the hell is even going on in this movie? I mean, really, there was no reason this movie should be this bad. You had 3 years in between movies to give us a good sequel. You had time on your side to make a movie that was maybe not as good as the original film, but was at least comparable, was at least entertaining. And they didn't even bother to do that at all. I have no idea what the hell this was. My only real guess with this movie is that Steven Soderbergh decided to just make a sequel without putting any effort into it, knowing he had the original cast back and letting them just improvise. Say whatever you want and don't even worry about making a plot out of it, and that's how we get a movie. And that's how it feels like when you watch this movie. And that's really the biggest problem with Ocean's 12. It's a movie that I think Warner Brothers gave Soderbergh way too much free control over, and it really hurts the film in the long run. It's a movie that is so terribly put together. It's just... it's unbelievable how bad this movie is. And it's amazing what happens after this, because this movie was still a success that Warner Brothers said, okay, we'll let you do another movie. And that's how we got the far better sequel, which was Ocean's 13, which had Al Pacino and Ellen Barkin joining in on the fun. And like I said, it's a much better movie. It's a much better written film. It made the story simple again. It made it fun again. It made it just as enjoyable as the first film was. There wasn't all these 80 billion plot holes that they were throwing in there like they did in 12. Scenes didn't made a whole lot more sense than it did in 12. It's kept in check, and overall, it never got too absurd for its own good. It's a proper way to end the series on a much better note, and was a much more enjoyable sequel in the Ocean's trilogy than this one was. And I have no idea what was going on in the mind of Soderbergh when he made this movie. And Steven Soderbergh, proven time and time again that he's a damn good director, and yeah. And this is one of those times when he got a little too big for his britches, and Warner Brothers gave him way too much creative control to work on this, and do whatever he wanted. And it basically went down as one of the biggest "what the hell were you thinking" moments in movie history. When you really look at the Ocean's movies, most of them are good. Like, Ocean's 11 is a great movie. Ocean's 13 is a pretty good sequel. I even liked Ocean's 8 with Sandra Bullock and Cate Blanchett. I thought that was a really good movie, but this is the black sheep of them all. This is the one that just doesn't work on any level, shape, or form. It's one of the worst sequels ever made. What more can you say, man? Ocean's 12 is a bad, bad movie. Speaking of bad sequels by Warner Brothers, they didn't just have one bad sequel this weekend. They had two, because New Line is technically part of Warner Brothers. So, ladies and gentlemen, the absurdity that is Blade Trinity.
I have to ask you a couple of questions. What can you tell me?
The beginning.
He's come back.
Empire final solution.
You can't win this war alone.
Blade Trinity.
There's nothing stopping them now. Just me.
I just want to say right off the bat, since we're now over 2 weeks after Deadpool and Wolverine came out, but thank God Ryan Reynolds gave Wesley Snipes a chance to play Blade again, because that was the moment in that movie that was my big shocking moment, the fact that they got him back for that movie, and gave him a good send-off in that movie, but maybe a possibility to maybe continue playing him in the MCU later on. I mean, let's think about it. The Mahershala Ali Blade movie is still dealing with a lot of troubles. They can't stick with the director, so you know what? Why not just do another one with Wesley Snipes in it? Why not just do that? But then again, that's wishful thinking on my part. But Blade Trinity is one of those movies that was one of the more troubling productions of its time, and it wasn't helped by Wesley Snipes himself, because this was when Wesley Snipes was so unhappy with the film's script and the original choice of director, David S. Goyer, who had written all 3 films previously and was then selected to replace the original director of the film, which Snipes was completely against. He reportedly caused a lot of difficulty during filming, including frequently refusing to shoot scenes, often forcing director Goyer to use stand-ins and computer effects to add his character to scenes, which are very much visible in this movie. They didn't even bother to try to hide the fact that Wesley Snipes clearly was not in that particular scene. Patton Oswalt later said that Snipes would spend much of his time smoking marijuana in his trailer. He'd get violent between Goyer and after falsely accusing him of racism. It's also been alleged that Snipes refused to interact with Goyer or his co-stars, and would instead communicate with them through his assistant or the use of notes. And he allegedly referred to co-star Ryan Reynolds by the term cracker on one or more occasions. And it got so bad, Snipes actually sued New Line Cinema and Goyer, claiming that the studio didn't pay him his full salary, that he was intentionally cut out of casting decisions and filmmaking processes, despite being one of the producers on the movie, and that his character's screen time was essentially reduced in favor of Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel. So a lot of problems with this movie going into it. But when it was all said and done, did it actually help the film stop the film from having anything good of it? Let's take a look at the plot here. You have Blade, once again played by Snipes, who finds himself alone, surrounded by enemies, fighting an uphill battle with the vampire nation and now humans. He joins forces with a group of vampire hunters, played by Biel and Reynolds, whom call themselves the Night Stalkers. The vampire nation awakens the king of vampires, Dracula, played by Dominic Purcell, from his slumber with intentions on using his primitive blood to become daywalkers. On the other side is Blade and his team manifesting a virus that could wipe out the vampire race once and for all. In the end, the two sides will collide, with only one of them coming out victorious. A battle between the ultimate vampire, whom never knew defeat, facing off against the greatest vampire slayer. And the first two Blade movies found that perfect balance of brilliant visuals and a good story, as well as a likability towards our main character, especially Wesley Snipes. Here, that magic is gone, and the movie stumbles because we get a mediocre story, a lackluster visual feel, and just an overall unpleasant watching experience all the way through. And yeah, it's great to have somebody like Blade and Whistler back in here, played by Chris Christopherson, even though this is probably, the third time he's died in these movies. Both Snipes and Christopherson manages to keep what we like about these characters in the first two films, and bring it into this movie, even though, yeah, they're clearly struggling to keep up. Like, Ryan Reynolds as Hannibal King and Jessica Biel as Abigail Whistler, they're not bad in this movie, especially with how Reynolds plays the next Marvel superhero he plays, but we'll eventually get to that when we get to X-Men Origins Wolverine. I mean, everybody, the main cast isn't bad in here. Other than that, a lot of the new characters really do not serve much of a purpose. I mean, it's one of the biggest problems that Marvel has with most of its threequels, is that they add in way too many characters that serve no purpose to the story except for fan service. And trust me, we'll get to that one when we get to Spider-Man 3, because that's a perfect example of fan service just going completely overboard. The great visuals that were introduced in both movies are definitely left out here. There's nothing that really wowed me here like they did in the first two movies. And it falls apart in the story department towards the middle, and you can just tell when a movie is bad when they have to shoot multiple endings when they have no idea how to end this film. There's literally two different endings that contradict themselves with different narrations by Ryan Reynolds, and it's just like, what is the point of this? Like, what was your end goal for this whole thing? They didn't have an end goal for it, and they just wanted to wrap this up and hopefully make as much money as they can, but you don't put a Blade... And the bottom line, the biggest problem of this movie is, you don't release a Blade movie around Christmas time, especially an R-rated superhero movie, because nobody is going to go see it at this time of the year. Nowadays, you could probably get away with it, but not in 2004. Not when superhero movies haven't reached that peak that they are at right now. Like, this is a terrible movie. This is not even a terrible movie, I would say. It's a film that you could clearly tell the production problems were heavily plagued by it. It's just a mediocre threequel. It's got a lot of problems to it. It's the least enjoyable of the three Blade films, and yet I don't hate it as much as the other movie. I don't hate the film in general. I just think it's just a film that you could just tell behind-the-scenes problems really hurt the film in the long run, and like I said, I'm just glad we got to see Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds doing something again, most recently in Deadpool and Wolverine, and hopefully that will lead to bigger and better things for Blade going forward. Just wishful thinking on my part, but Blade Trinity is one you can easily skip, quite honestly. It's not even that it's a bad movie, it's just a very underwhelming sequel, especially compared to the first two movies in general. It just shows that David S. Goyer just needs to never direct another movie ever again, because, man, he's a great writer, but when he directs a movie, it's just like, I don't know what happens to him. When he gets writing and directing controls, it's just like, all that talent he has as a writer just goes slowly downhill. So anyway, that is Blade Trinity. So let's get to an actual good movie this weekend. Wes Anderson gives us the really funny movie, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Supposedly, Cousteau and his cronies invented the idea of putting walkie-talkies into the helmet. But we made ours with a special rabbit ear on the top so we could pipe in some music.
The Belafonte, home to Team Zissou. Skilled crew of deep-sea divers, adventurers, documentary filmmakers.
Action!
Led by internationally renowned oceanographer Captain Steve Zissou, expert on every aspect of marine life.
Swamp leeches, everybody! Check for swamp leeches. Nobody else got hit? I'm the only one? What's the deal?
But there remains one form of life about which Captain Zissou knows very little.
You're supposed to be my son, right? I want you on Team Zissou.
The answer's yes.
Well, it's got to be. I'm already a red cap and a Speedo.
Hold!
This will be Team Zissou's most ambitious adventure to date. I'm going to go on an overnight drunk, and in 10 days, I'm going to set out to find the shark that ate my friend and destroy it.
What would be the scientific purpose of killing it?
Revenge.
You must
legally swear, that you'll not kill that shark.
Split into 2 groups. I'll take Ned, Okada, and Wolodarski.
Thanks. Thanks a lot for not taking me.
We're being led on an illegal suicide mission.
I'm gonna fight you, Steve.
You never say, I'm going to fight you, Steve. You just smile and act natural, and then you sucker punch it.
Action.
Are you finding what you were looking for out here with me? I hope so. Quiet out there tonight. Can you hear the jack whale singing?
Beautiful. I wonder what they're saying.
Well, that was the sludge tanker over there, but there you go.
The sad thing about this movie is that it unfortunately didn't get the proper respect it does nowadays. This was seen as Wes Anderson's first major flop as a director, as the film didn't get the best reviews in general. It mostly got mixed reviews. It was a flop at the box office. But, like with most of his other movies, time really has worked out in this film's favor, because I've said it before, man, Wes Anderson does not usually make a lot of bad movies. In fact, I've never seen a really bad Wes Anderson movie from him. I mean, the guy knows exactly who his audience is, who his target audience is, and knows exactly what type of movie he's got to make in order to entertain you, the viewer. And, like I said, I'm a big fan of his work, and I was a big fan of this movie right from the get-go. This is a story about Bill Murray playing Steve Zissou, an eccentric oceanographer who sets out to exact revenge on the jaguar shark that ate his partner Esteban. And Zissou is both a parody and homage to French pioneer Jacques Cousteau, to whom the film is dedicated. It also has Owen Wilson, Cate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, Michael Gambon, Jeff Goldblum, Angelica Hutt, and I always say this name Michael Gambon it's like his language, like Michael Gambon, but I get that messed up with the other names here. Angelica Houston, there we go, Bud Cort, and it was not, like I said, it wasn't a hit when it came out, but it has definitely grown a following over the years. And it's a movie that I really enjoyed from the very beginning. I think it's a visual pleasure. It's a really enjoyable movie. It's Bill Murray doing what Bill Murray does best. He's a great actor, a funny actor too. And this is a movie that just works to his talents very well. The cast is great. The visual flair of the movie is amazing. The music is great. The cinematography is top notch. Yeah, it's not Royal Tenenbaums, and most people saw it as a flop compared to the Royal Tenenbaums, but it's still a freaking great movie, man. Great writing, strong cast, great direction, great comedy. Absolutely incredible. Definitely one of my favorite movies from him. A really great film. What more can you say? It's Wes Anderson, and if you love Wes Anderson, you're going to love the hell out of The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Three orphans.
Hello. I am your beloved Count Olaf.
An unscrupulous relative.
I will raise these orphans. All I ask is that you do everything that pops into my head while I enjoy the enormous fortune your parents left behind.
And a series of unfortunate events.
What's that up there?
The tower which you are never to enter. Under any circumstances.
Paramount Pictures, DreamWorks Pictures, and Nickelodeon Movies present Jim Carrey's Little Snippets, a series of unfortunate events. The idea. Starts December 17th in theaters everywhere.
This is, of course, based off the famed book series of the same name by Lemony Snicket. But you have the story here. We have three children, Violet, Klaus, and Sonny Baudelaire, who are left orphaned when their house burns down with their parents inside of it in mysterious circumstances. They are left in the custody of a distant relative, Cousin Olaf, played by Jim Carrey, and it is soon apparent that Cousin Olaf only cares about the children for their large inheritance. And it's really hard to talk about this movie without comparing it to the Netflix series that came out not too long ago, and there are a lot of similarities to both, but honestly, if you saw the original series on Unfortunate Events movie from 2004, you basically get what you saw in the movie, but in that show, I think it's a better quality, and there's a lot more to it. the original movie covered most of the first 3 novels, and the show covers the first 4 novels in 2-part episodes. And there are definitely a lot of similarities to the 2004 movie and the show. Most good. For one thing, I think Neil Patrick Harris is a much better Count Olaf than Jim Carrey is. Carrey's not bad in here in particular. I just think that Neil Patrick Harris is just a better Count Olaf, and I think he's much better than Jim Carrey. Honestly, like I like a lot of more things from Neil Patrick Harris than I do Jim Carrey. Nothing against Jim Carrey by any means necessary, but if I had to pick between NPH or Jim Carrey, I'm picking NPH in this case. I think Patrick Warburton is a much better narrator in the series than Jude Law is here. By the way, we're gonna wrap up the final 2 movies that he's in. So for 2004, so stay tuned for that. But Warburton, I think, makes the narration much better than what Jude Law does, because in this movie he's basically just being Jude Law, and he's just sounding way too melodramatic. And Warburton, I think, just makes it better because he has that such distinctive voice that just makes him stand out much more than somebody like Jude Law does. The 2 kids in this, they're played in the TV series by Milana Weissman and Louise Hines. I think they're much better actors than Emily Browning and Liam Aiken, which, a lot of the actors in here in the show were pretty much better than the actual movie. I think the visual look of the series fits more in tune with the books. The movie, it has those darker colors and visuals to it, but too many of those lighter scenes. Like there's really a contrast between the books and the way the movie plays those scenes. I think the scripting in the show works a lot better than the movie did, mostly because you have the book's writer writing a good majority of the series, so it sticks more to the intentions of the book. So, yeah, needless to say, I think the Netflix series is definitely a lot better, and this is probably more of appraisal of the Netflix show than it is of the actual movie that came out this weekend. But the movie itself isn't bad. I'm just saying that if I had to choose between the movie and the book and the Netflix show, I'm picking the Netflix show over the movie. The movie isn't bad, but there's definitely a much better version out there, and it's on Netflix. You should go check it out, but like I said, this isn't a bad movie per se. It's not as good as the TV series is. So, with that said, let us move on to our next movie, and that is Adam Sandler, Taya Leone, and Cloris Leachman in James L. Brooks' Spanglish.
May I say just one thing?
Yes, Mother, one thing. Go ahead.
Thank you. Deborah, you're going to lose your husband. And you will never find someone as good. That's it. Oh! Drive carefully.
Well, you've done it again, Mother. Made me hate myself.
Lately, your low self-esteem is just good common sense.
From James L. Brooks, the Academy Award-winning director of Terms of Endearment, broadcast news, and as good as it gets.
Good morning.
Hey.
John Klasky is a loving father.
You don't have to get up yet, but are you thinking seriously about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
A world-class chef.
Don't even know what to root for. Thought a 1-star gets me nauseous.
Oh, it's 4, there's no place to go, but oh my God, you lost one of your stars.
3.25 stars.
That'd be perfect. I mean, you're good, but not good enough to feel bad that you're not great.
And a man whose wife...
I helped run a commercial design company up until 4 months ago, and it was downsized to zip, and now I'm a full-time mom. Gulp. Double gulp.
is struggling to find herself.
He was mad at me as mom because of what happened.
You mean to say? No.
Good guy. Good guy.
Yeah, definitely a movie where the acting really excels over the rest of the film, because the rest of the film is... Okay, it's not bad, but let's delve into the film itself. You have Paz Vega, who plays Flor Moreno, who's a penniless single mother of one who emigrates to Los Angeles from Mexico in high hopes of creating a better life for her 12-year-old daughter, Christina. However, after landing a job as a housekeeper for this laid-back gourmet chef played by Adam Sandler and his well-to-do family, she finds herself up against a daunting language barrier, and Deborah, played by Taya Leone, and is his trouble, whose job's trouble rife, and little by little, as Flor struggles to start fresh and, of course, to learn English, an inevitable cultural collision is at hand when a burgeoning romantic affection starts to take over. And yeah, part of that, I cut the trailer just as her character comes into play in the movie, but she does play a big part in the movie in general, and she is really good in the movie. In fact, you know, a lot of the actors in here are really good. You've got Adam Sandler giving another really good, solid, dramatic performance, something that's definitely outside of his norm. You know, this is one of those movies that tries to prove, like with Punch Drunk Love, like, hey, I can do things besides stupid comedies, and yeah, he's really good in the movie. Taya Leone, I thought, was very good in the movie. So is Cloris Leachman. Sarah Steele, I think, is pretty good playing the daughter of Adam and Taya Leone's characters. The film itself, though, is just... It's got a good idea to it, just poor execution overall. You really can't tell what kind of a movie it really wants to be. Like, it wants to be a number of different things. Like, it wants to be this culture clash movie, but it also wants to have this message about... This message that it really has a hard time figuring out what to find, and it really does hurt the movie in the long run. And it's a shame, because the pieces are definitely there. And for James L. Brooks, this is certainly a better movie than the last film he would direct, which would almost kill his directing career until the movie he's just making recently, which is El McRae. I think that's what it's called. But, you know, after 14 years since How Do You Know came out, he's back. He's making another movie again, which I'm glad to see that he is. But this was kind of the beginning of a downward spiral for him as a director. But yeah, I just don't think the movie had a good idea of what the sole message of the film was supposed to be. I think there's ideas of what it was trying to be, but it just can't figure out how to tell it in a very cohesive story that makes a whole lot of sense. It doesn't have that flow and ebb that James L. Brooks had with movies like the aforementioned, you know, Terms of Endearment, As Good as It Gets, or Broadcast News. It just feels like a movie that's trying to get by its performances, which, again, are the best things about the movie, but the rest of the film itself is just way too complicated to figure out, and it really hurts the ebb and flow of what they're trying to go for here, and it just takes away from the good stuff in it, and the good stuff in it is really good, but it's unfortunately muddled in the rest of the film, which is just a pretty bland, lackluster storyline that's trying to have a good message behind it, but it just can't really figure out how to say that message in a way that people can understand it, and it's unfortunate. It's a film that I think should have been done much better, considering who's directing and writing this, but unfortunately, it stumbles big time when it matters the most, and it just hurts the film big time, and yeah. Not much more to say about that one. That is Spanglish, so on to our next movie, which is the star-studded remake of The Flight of the Phoenix.
Checklist, go ahead, good buddy. Seatbelts. I always like to have a little something strapped to my lap. Check. Oh, great.
What's the sound? Ted!
Look like it's going higher. We'll go around it.
I'm sorry to stop it there for a second, but that propeller could have easily killed at least two or four of those people there, because good lord, you saw the way the propeller went right into that plane. You can't tell me somebody was not sitting there when that happened. I'm sorry to interrupt the trailer, but I just had to say something about that because Jesus.
Where are we? 2,000 miles west of our course. Suppose there'll be a Four Seasons hotel out here, right?
We are in the middle of a desert with no radio, very little water. We try to walk out of here, we're going to last about 2 days.
You don't think anybody's coming, do you? They're not going to waste any more money looking for us. I can get us out of here. We have all the parts and tools we need on board.
What the hell is he talking about?
Building a new airplane.
Out of the old one.
It's impossible.
The design is perfect. The only flaw is that we have to rely on you to fly it.
One of us has got to kill him.
Why the hell not? Look, I say we build a damn plane.
I'm not taking orders from you.
We only have one chance with this if it doesn't work.
And we all die horribly.
Yeah, no pressure on me, right? Anybody got a change of underwear?
It's coming.
We gotta cover the engine! The score, it's electrical. There's fuel in that wing!
Everyone here is dispensable except for me.
What the hell are they waiting for?
We're people. Families, lives to live. Let's get the hell out of here.
The flag will fly!
Sure glad that wasn't our plane.
Okay, that doesn't really happen. That's actually a scene from a criminally underrated movie called Freaked, which that was what I was trying to find a scene that best fits the end of that trailer of Dennis Quaid screaming at the top of his lungs with the airplane. I had a couple of plans for that particular scene. I was either going to use A, that scene from Freak, B, the explosion from Back to the Future Part 3, which involved the train, or C, the scene from Looney Tunes when Bugs and the Gremlin are in the plane and it's going down and it just stops right before it hits the ground. And, you know, at the end of that cartoon, it's just like, sorry, Bugs, we ran out of gas. You know what it is with these A cards. Like, just a joke that I wanted to throw in there at the end there. But anyway, let's talk about this movie. I wish we could talk about all those other movies I mentioned because, man, this is not a good movie. Flight of the Phoenix, which is a remake of the 1965 movie of the same name, both of them based off of a novel of the same name, in which we have a group of people who survive an airplane crash in the desert and must build a new aircraft out of the old one to escape. We got Dennis Quaid, Giovanni Ribisi, Tyrese Gibson, Miranda Otto, Hugh Laurie, and the pre-supernatural Jared Padalecki among the cast involved in here. It's directed by John Moore, who gave us such classics as the 2006 Omen remake, Max Payne, and A Good Day to Die Hard. Not a good start, but we got the writer of Man on Fire, Scott Frank, and also Edward Burns. Yeah, this is... You can start to see where the problems come into play here. You got a bad director to start off with. You got a co-writer who has never written in Edward Burns, who's never written a big budget film like this before, and it's just like, what was the point here? Like, what was the point? It's like, how... And Scott Frank, by the way, these two never even met at that point, and these are three very different minds coming together. And when you have that many cooks in the kitchen, you better have something really damn good besides whatever the hell this movie was. Not helped by the fact that this movie had a ton of production problems behind the film. A ferry sank during the transportation of a major set piece across a river, forcing the river bottom salvage of the aircraft fuselage. Jared Padalecki actually flipped his vehicle, concluding the aerial film sequences, one of the planes actually suffered a long gash along the right wing where the film truck backed under it, and its driver misjudged the truck's height, and then a repair crew had to be flown in with a damaged segment reskinned and the aircraft flown back across the Atlantic. And then one of the cinematographers, Kieran Barry, was filming behind a plywood barrier intended to protect him from the equipment, and then an 800-pound fiberglass model plane propelled down an elevated track, bounced off a sand dune in the Namibia desert, and crashed into that hut. And he actually was awarded close to $4 million in damages for broken legs and neurological damage he received during the accident. Jesus Christ. Like, if that's not a sign of how much of a disaster this movie is, then quite frankly, I don't know what is. Because, man, I never saw the original movie, but I'm telling you right now, I'd rather watch the original movie than watch this piece of garbage again. This is a terrible movie that just feels lifeless. It feels like a generic-ass remake of an action movie. Like, not even a good action movie from the original probably is. It's like a lazy, poorly put-together action movie that just, you know... If you saw A Good Day to Die Hard, you pretty much have an idea of what this movie is. Like, the director, John Moore, clearly is a childish director. As somebody, if you've ever seen the behind-the-scenes footage from A Good Day to Die Hard, you can see that. Like, he does not feel like an action director that clearly knows what he's doing. Like, he's a director at hire. Like, he's somebody that the studio hires, you know, make the movie. You know, we don't care about it. We don't care if you have any good talents or not. Just get it done, get it out there, and we'll make money off of it. And Dennis Quaid, man, you just couldn't have one bad flop in 2004. You had to have two bad flops in 2004, but hey, at least in a couple weeks you'll have at least one good 2004 movie, your best one in general, within good company, but we'll get to that one eventually. But the cast here is really wasted in here. Giovanni Ribisi, I like him as a character actor as a whole. I like him as Sky Captain in The World of Tomorrow. I think this is just a wrong role for him in this. Like, I don't think he fits this role very well at all, and it really does hurt him in the long run. I like him as an actor, but here, he's just struggling way too hard here, and it's just, you know, it's just not a good movie, man. The action sequences aren't that impressive. The characters aren't that memorable whatsoever. Too much shit is going on. Like, it's amazing how much they cram into this movie that's literally taking place in the middle of nowhere. Like, how do you do that? It's amazing to think that they were able to pull this off as badly as they did. But lo and behold, that is what the Flight of the Phoenix is about, apparently. And like I said, I haven't seen the original, but I'm really guessing right off the bat that the original is definitely the better film in general. So anyway, let's go ahead and get back to some good movies. How about some really good movies? Oscar nominees, Oscar winners. Let's talk about the first one here. Martin Scorsese's The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio as Howard Hughes.
Do your worst, Mr. Hughes.
We could build a plane with the ability to fly into the substratosphere.
You're losing $25,000 a day doing this. You could lose everything.
Well, I won't. What does controlling interest in TWA cost me?
You want to buy the airline?
Why should I let someone else have all the fun?
Howard, you madman.
I have heard some disquieting rumors about Mr. Hughes. I'd like to know everything there is to know about Mr. Hughes.
See, I want to learn what pleases you.
What's this?
It's a present.
You can buy me dinner. How about that?
My investigators have turned up a lot of dirt.
We are in a street fight. I'm not going to lose. He owns Pan Am. He owns Congress. But he does not own the sky. She'll go faster.
A movie about an airplane that happened on this weekend that didn't suck. Of course, this is the story of Howard Hughes, based off the book of the same name that depicts the life of him, who was an aviation pioneer and the director of the film Hell's Angels, and portrays his life from 1927 to 1947, during which time Hughes became a successful film producer and aviation magnate who simultaneously grows more unstable due to severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. You got a cast that also includes Cate Blanchett, Kate Beckinsale, Ian Holm, John C. Reilly, Alec Baldwin, Jude Law, Gwen Stefani, Kelly Garner, Willem Dafoe, Alan Alda, Edward Herrmann. And it's one of Martin Scorsese's best movies. It's a movie that really elevates Leonardo DiCaprio's star power to another level. He just plays this role so well, and the film is just really good. It's a really engaging period piece movie. It's a really engaging biopic about the life of Howard Hughes. Finally, we get a good Howard Hughes movie after so many movies in the past that tried to do something similar to this and just kind of failed miserably at it. But this is a movie that does it very well because you got a good director in Martin Scorsese, you got a great writer in John Logan, and a great actor in Leonardo DiCaprio, who unfortunately didn't win the Oscar for Best Actor, even though he probably should have, but he did not. But then again, Jamie Foxx took that Oscar, and I think that's a better performance. But DiCaprio definitely deserved to be in that conversation. The film did win 5 Oscars, though. It was nominated for 11, including Best Picture and Best Director. It won for Cate Blanchett for Best Supporting Actress, and I think the other ones for visual effects and sound editing, I think. Let me see. Best film editing, okay. Yeah, I was close. Best cinematography, best film editing, best costume design, best art direction. So I was close on at least one of them. One's better than get one right is better than getting none. Apparently, I'm going to say that. But yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio works very well in this role, and it shows how great of an actor he really was. And he was elevating his status as stepping away from being that pretty boy from Titanic and proving that hey, the guy's got a lot of acting chops, and he makes it work here. Cate Blanchett's very good in the movie too. Kate Beckinsale, we've kind of smacked her around here a couple times with some of the bad movies she's been in. But this is a movie where she actually does show she's got some acting chops as well. It's a film that just is very entertaining, very visually pleasing to look at. It's a great period piece, a great story about Howard Hughes. Not much more to say about it, man. It's a really good movie that definitely deserves to be checked out. As does our next movie, the year's Best Picture winner, and that is Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby.
Do your best, Lord, to protect him. Other than that,
you what I want. There's no use me repeating myself.
Mr. Dillon?
I owe you money.
No, sir.
I know your mama.
Thought you might be interested in training me.
I don't train girls.
People see me fat, say I'm pretty tough.
Girly, tough ain't enough.
Honestly, all I could say about $1 Million Baby is the same thing I could probably say about The Aviator. I mean, everything about this movie just works very well. You have a story where you have Clint Eastwood as this fight manager and cutman Jerry Boyd, and she is helping out this underdog amateur boxer played by Hilary Swank to achieve her dream of becoming a professional boxer. It also stars Morgan Freeman. It's written by Paul Haggis, which means that he'll have 2 back-to-back Best Picture winners at this point, because he'll have this movie and then he'll be the director of the movie Crash, which look, I like that movie, but I'm just going to tell you right now before we eventually get to it, it shouldn't have won Best Picture. It should have been Brokeback Mountain, but we'll eventually get to that. We'll eventually dig ourselves into that one a little bit later on here, but $1 Million Baby is one of Clint Eastwood's best movies. It's a movie that you could tell really did deserve to win Best Picture. It's a film that is very engaging, features 3 solid performances from its leading stars, Eastwood, Swank, and Morgan Freeman. Both Swank and Freeman won Oscars for this. Hilary Swank won her second one. Morgan Freeman won her first one. And really, there's no you can see why they did, because they're all really good actors in here, really giving it their all. They're really great performances. The visual look of the film is impressive. The storytelling is well done. Just everything about this movie just works so well. And really, there's not much more I can say about this movie that hasn't already been said already. It's a great movie, really well made. Definitely one of the best Clint Eastwood movies. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely check this one out, $1 Million Baby, as if you hadn't already. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is Kevin Spacey as Bobby Darin in Beyond the Sea.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Bobby Darin!
I want nightclubs, I want Vegas, movies, TV, I want it all.
When you come from nothing like us, then you're destined to make a name for yourself, and we will.
You know when that shark bites with its teeth, baby.
There she is, the girl I'm gonna marry, Sandy D.
God, I hate that Kevin Spacey has become the complete scumbag that he has 20 years after this movie, because, man, the guy really is giving it his all with this film. He's the co-writer, he directed the film, and he's also playing Bobby Darin. He's singing, too, as Bobby Darin. Like, so much of this movie should be working, and yet, kind of like with Spanglish, that's a great performance isn't the only thing that can carry the film over, and sadly, the results speak for themselves here. So in the film, Kevin Spacey plays Bobby Darin. It shows his rise to success in both the music and film industry during the 1950s and 1960s, as well as his marriage to Sandra Dee, played by Kate Bosworth. You also see John Goodman and Bob Hoskins involved in the cast as well. And the movie really, I mean, it's one of those. It's a typical musical biopic, and it's one of those ones from that has now become the norm for most biopics. I mean, the best thing about the movie is Kevin Spacey, who really is the strongest thing about the movie. I mean, he's not only a great actor, he's a great singer in this movie. Like, he channels Bobby Darin so well with the songs in here. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie is your typical biopic dreck. I mean, it's the same type of film you see nowadays with stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, you know, the ones I've always mentioned, Back to Black, Bob Marley, One Love, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. A lot of it is in this movie. But unlike those movies, you could tell Spacey is at least trying, but I just don't think he had a good enough script to really work with here. I think he was just solely going with the notion that, you know, he could save the movie on his own because he was that great of an actor back then. But of course, nowadays times have changed with him, and it's a shame because, you know, he really is he does a very good Bobby Darin in here, and I wish the rest of the movie would really live up to the great performance that's in here, but it just doesn't. It just really does not. And as good as I could say Kevin Spacey is, as soon as I could say Kate Bosworth is, it's just not worth it to save it in the end. But, I mean, if you're going to look for the stuff to watch it online. Watch Kevin Spacey channel Bobby Darin because he does it so well in this movie. I just wish the rest of the movie could be just that, but unfortunately it isn't. So yeah, another disappointing movie indeed, Beyond the Sea.
Circle joins my family circle, they'll form a chain.
I can't have a chink in my chain.
From Universal Pictures.
We're family now. Just make Jack feel a little more comfortable here.
Almost done. Comes the mother and father.
Make sure Moses doesn't go in there. They have a hat.
Of all comedies.
JJ, no!
The cat can flush?
Meet the Fockers, rated PG-13.
Because first movie, I mean, everything that you saw in there was pretty much the first movie again. And, yeah, it's basically a comedy sequel, and, they got it on the right time. I mean, they got it right just a little bit over the criteria that I usually like to have with comedy sequels. Like, between 2 to 4 years, I think, is that when you get the best comedy sequels overall. This barely goes over it, but it's about 4 years, and, I wouldn't even say this is really the best in general, but, as you see there, having managed to enter the long-form circle of trust after the events of Meet the Parents, Greg Focker, played by Ben Stiller, invites the straight-laced Burns family to meet Mom and Dad, played by Dustin Hoffman and Barbara Streisand, the eccentric Fockers. However, as conservative Jack and Dina, once again played by Robert De Niro and Blythe Danner, finally get to meet the uninhibited cool parents, Bernie and Roz, rivalries and secrets emerge, and someone learns a new word. But there's still something fishy about Greg. Will Jack resort to his using his infallible contraptions to get to the bottom of Greg's suspicious behavior? Did I already say before that this was a comedy sequel? I think you can pretty much tell exactly what's going to happen here. And yeah, everything you expect to happen in here is pretty much that. It was a movie that's pretty much the same movie as the last time around, but it was a massive hit when it came out. It was a movie that I don't think anybody really expected to be as big of a hit as it was. I mean, it did have the benefit of coming out on Christmas weekend. You know, families are going to the movies after the holidays. There's nothing really coming out between Christmas and New Year's, so there's plenty to choose from. And this was one of the big ones, and this was actually the highest-grossing film Robert De Niro starred in before Joker came out in 2019. And yeah, it made almost double what the original film did. I mean, it's a film that honestly, like, it's a movie that has a lot of fans to it. It was a big hit, and it was essentially the film that had made this into a trilogy because we would get Little Fockers at the end of the year. I would say we will probably regret that, but we'll climb that ladder when we have to. But I say that this is a bad movie. I say it like it's a bad movie, but it's really not. It's just a movie that suffers from sequelitis. I mean, it really does feel like a film that we've seen done to death. And yeah, the film isn't bad in particular. I do like Dustin Hoffman and Barbara Streisand coming into the film as Greg's parents. I think they are a nice contrast to Robert De Niro and Blythe Danner's characters. Ben Stiller, I think, is still very funny. I do like that we get to meet a lot of the Fockers in here. There are parts in here that I do really not like. I don't like the subplot where, you know, Alana Eubank plays the former housekeeper of Greg when you know, she had, you know, apparently he and she had an affair together, and they supposedly have a kid together, and that subplot really does not go anywhere in general, and it just really kind of feels like they forced it in there. There's also a subplot about them getting arrested towards the end of the movie, and it feels kind of pointless as well. It just, so much in this movie just feels like it's there to just add more filler, add more time to the storyline, and I just feel like it really is completely unnecessary to the film in general. And like I said, it uses a lot of the same stuff from the first movie again, and it's just kind of like, are we really doing this again? Like, can you really at least try to do something a little bit different? I mean, with Jay Roach, who directed this movie, he did Austin Powers as Spyro Shaggy, which is a good sequel. Maybe not as good as the original film, but at least they were trying to do something different with it. This just feels like they were recycling the same movie again, but it had the benefit of coming out over the holiday weekend, and it proved to be a massive hit. And hey, it's a comedy that still remains one of the highest-grossing comedies of all time. Excuse me. But yeah, it's a movie that's just kind of like, it's fine for what it is. It's your typical comedy sequel. I would say it's one of the better ones because there's at least moments in here that I do. Most of the stuff I like in here is fine for what it is, which is more than I can say for most comedy sequels. But this, yeah, it's fine for what it is. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, and it certainly beats the crap out of the film that ends the series. But again, we will cross that pathway when we get to the end of the decade. But so yeah, that is Meet the Fockers. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Kenan Thompson starring in Fat Albert.
In his time, he was a hero who walked the walk and talk the talk.
Damon!
Fat Albert is back. Coming from his time.
Do you have a can opener?
The can opener is on the can.
To our time.
Wow, it looks like an indoor town.
Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
Now, come on, let's get this sweater on. I can't take the sweater off because I don't know what's underneath it.
To show everybody
You just yanking my chain.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know you had a chain.
how to have a good time.
They call me Fat Albert. I don't want to get skinny. I like a bigger heart.
From 20th Century Fox.
Fat Albert is in love.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And the mind of Bill Cosby.
What's that on your head?
It's my hat.
Why don't you take it off?
I have no face.
It's Hey, Hey, Hey. On Christmas Day.
Nice meeting you.
I'll meet you downstairs. Oh my.
Fat Albert.
Who is it? I'm Fat Albert. Yeah, right. I'm looking for Mr. Cosby. Are you his dad?
Directed by Joel Swick.
Yeah, nothing like getting to taste the old medicine, huh, William? That's a bizarre trailer from the demon Fat Albert coming to you in the screen to characters that are barely in the movie, if not in the movie in general, like that girl in the shop, the one with the blue shirt on. You never see her in the movie, and you never get to see the junkyard in real life, and yeah, methinks that this movie was heavily reshot and re-edited before this actually came out, but Fat Albert, based off the popular television series of the same name, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, which I highly recommend you check out. It's one of the best, it's one of my favorite TV shows. But, yeah, you could see where the problem with the movies come into play here, but there's a lot of potential in a movie where there's a lot of potential for this. You had Bill Cosby, the show's creator behind the project. You had the director, Joel Swick, who had just directed one of the biggest comedy hits of all time at that point, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Kenan Thompson, I think, is near perfect casting as Fat Albert, and you would think that this couldn't possibly fail, but then you remember this is the Fox era run by Tom Rothman. This is the guy that eventually gave us movies like Garfield, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Marmaduke, Fantastic Four, everything he did with Star Wars, a PG-13 version of Die Hard, a PG-13 Alien vs. Predator. Yeah, Tom Rothman did not make the best decisions in 2004 at Fox. But let's be honest, he's not making the best decisions in 2024 at Sony. I mean, did you see Harold on the Purple Crayon? But yeah, we're going to go deep into this one because it's one of those movies where you just have to hear from somebody who saw it to understand how bad it is. But, I mean, it starts off right from the get-go where it has this traditionally animated sequence, just like the TV show, where you have Fat Albert and the gang singing Gonna Have a Good Time. Which is great, except one problem. This movie, this is based off of a movie that was from a show that's notoriously known for not having great animation. Yeah, one of the rare times when commenting on how good the animation is actually a flaw against the movie. And yeah, Filmation, if you don't know, they were known for telling more in-depth and serious storylines than focusing on great animation. And figuring they could spend more money focusing on more topical storylines and recycling animation, the animation wasn't their priority, but more focus was set on the stories that they told. And it seems like they're doing quite the opposite here. The focus is more on the higher quality animation than an actual story is. As you can tell from the rest of the movie, where you have Doris Robertson, played by Kyla Pratt, who's a depressed teenager still recovering from the death of her grandfather, and she's ignoring her foster sister, played by Dania Ramirez, whose efforts to bring her a social life, and upon learning that her parents will be away for a 2-day business trip to the Poconos, which kind of a douchey way to tell them that, you know, it's like that's it's presented in a way that's in that scene. You remember that scene from Jimmy Neutron where the aliens use notes that literally say, "We have gone to Florida for an extended vacation." We're sure that her parents were taken by aliens to be their chicken alien leader, right? So she essentially lets a tear hit a TV remote as Fat Albert is on TV land, which when the hell did that ever happen? But the tear opens up a portal between the cartoon world and the real world, and Fat Albert jumps out of the TV knowing she has a problem. And that scene in the trailer looks much better than it does in the movie, which again, is when Fat Albert comes to her world, it's horrifying to look at. I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but also, Fat Albert apparently is able to figure out how tears can somehow magically open up portals to other worlds, and, you know, it's just one of those things that we'll never know. You know, just like those magic tears that the dolphins were able to talk to humans with and got in that Titanic movie that the Nostalgia Critic looked at. But then you have Rudy, Dumb Donald, Mushmouth, Bucky, and Old Warrior Harold jumping out as well. Bill tells Russell to stay there. Mostly because they couldn't find an actor to play him, even though they got Jeremy Suarez from the Bernie Mac show to play him in the voice role, and he only appears in this in the as an animated character. So it's a fish out of water story, pretty much. I'm not going to run down the whole story. I really don't want to run down the whole storyline here because we'd be here all day, but I kind of have to tell you how bad this movie really is. So, you know, I'll tell you some of the things that really bug me about the movie. You know, the gang tries to go back into their show, which ends up abruptly ending. It's like the show is ending at weird points in the day. Like, as soon as something's about to happen, they're just like the biggest trolls out there. And then they have these jokes, like there's this bit involving pop cans, which I was born in 1989, so I don't know how pop cans were like back then, but I'm pretty sure you could still use the pop cans like we use today. But these guys are so fascinated about how pop cans work in the modern times. It's like, that's really the one thing you're going to think is so amazing here. But like I said, they go into the living room just as the show was ending. Like, TV Land's the biggest troll in the whole movie because it just happens at the stupidest points in the whole movie. And so they follow Doris to school, which is weird because the movie begins with her at school and then she just goes home and then just comes back to school. Like, I did that once when I was in high school. I got in trouble for it, and yeah, I don't think you'd be able to do that. You'd be able to do that here, but apparently in this movie you can. But they're amazed by the new technology. Like I said, pop cans, cell phones, laptops, pointless Jeff Garlin and Aaron Carter cameos, and also one of the guys from Good Charlotte too. And yeah, it's a fish out of water story, and there are times when the lines can be very amusing. There are the times when the lines can actually be funny. And then they have a subplot where Alfred falls in love with Lori, and then you have this sort of the antagonist in here, a bully, Reggie, who is an annoying schoolmate who has an obsessive crush on both Lori and apparently Doris too, and challenges Albert to a track race that Albert wins. And then there's another attempt to help Doris, and then the gang essentially persuades these cheerleaders to invite them to this outdoor party, and they essentially say yeah. So yeah, no conflict there. And so they decide to go to a shopping mall, and the absurdity here really gets ridiculous because they show up at the mall and they're just awestruck, like they've never been to a mall before in the 1970s. You know, it's not like Dawn of the Dead came out in the 1970s. Oh wait, they did. You know where that took place at? A mall. So yeah, the filmmakers are not really using their brains for this, unfortunately. And there are, again, some interesting ideas. Like, there's an idea that, you know, as much as the characters are still in the real world, they start to fade out a little bit, but they also get act a little bit different. Like, there's a thing where Mushmouth can now speak normally, and Don Donald goes to the library and takes off his hat, and he's got a face. You know, and it's never really explained, but at least they're trying something different overall. But they never explain. It's only with a certain amount of characters, though. They never explain why Albert's not changing, Bill's not changing, Bucky or Rudy are. They're fading, but they're not. Their personalities aren't really changing either. So they essentially go back to the TV, and once again, breaking news interrupts the show, and it's just like, keep in mind, this is TV Land, a network for a cable channel for sitcoms and dramas. How is there breaking news on TV Land? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If there was like an emergency alert system, then maybe this could work, but no, it just doesn't work that way. And of course, Albert wants to stay with Lori and help Doris with a problem, and Bill's the only one who's being the smart one and say, we have to go back to our world because we're not gonna be able to exist anymore. So there is a little bit of an existential crisis here as well. I really don't like the way they portray Albert in the movie because in the TV show, I mean, he's nothing like this. In this movie, they treat Fat Albert like he's selfish and lovelorn once he meets somebody he's got it bad for, and goes against the complete idea of the character altogether. Compare that to the cartoons where he would always help out other people by giving advice to people and making decisions to help and sometimes save others. Sometimes it didn't even work. There was one episode where, you know, there was a gun battle, and, you know, one of the kids, one of their friends dies. Not one of the main gang, but one of the friends that they know dies, and that's literally how the episode ends. So, like, yeah, even when he's trying to do the best he can, he can't always win in the end. And yeah, it doesn't work out because those moments don't work out, but they make him more of a human and realistic character than anything that this movie gives him credit for. So as they continue on here, Fat Albert literally meets his maker in Bill Cosby, and insert as many, jokes about Bill Cosby as you want to, because why not? I mean, Nostalgia Critic did a lot of that when he reviewed this movie earlier in the year. And again, this is where the movie should get interesting, because you have the creator meeting his own creation. It sounds like an interesting setup, and what they come up with is so stupid. Cosby basically tells him that the character is based on Doris's grandfather, the one who passed away at the beginning of the movie, which explains Doris's confusion over why Fat Albert seems so familiar to her. Cosby basically tells him to return to the cartoon world, or he will turn to celluloid dust. And they do kind of create this emotional storyline out of this scenario, but it's so hammy and cheesy, and it's not even the most cheesiest thing they do in the movie that tries to tug at your heartstrings. We'll get to that at the end. But of course, we got to have the big misunderstanding cliche, and they do it here with Albert and Laurie telling him he has to leave, and she thinks he's being insensitive. It's just like, no, he's literally going to be killed if he doesn't get back into television, which everybody else does except for him, because he has to go back to helping Dory out. And with the way that this movie has been going, given how the TV schedule works in this world, I wouldn't have been surprised they cut to the O.J. Simpson trial, because that's just how the world works here. And so yeah, he goes to the marathon to cheer her on, and Doris wins, and Reggie, being the asshole that he is, attempts to threaten Albert, and not even threaten Albert, he's just like, he just screams out, "Hey everybody, look, it's Fat Albert," even though nobody in this world apparently knows who Fat Albert is, except for one kid before he meets Cosby, and he's just like, why aren't you in Fat Albert in the TV show right now? It's just like, this is a little white kid too, this isn't like a black kid or anything, this is like a little white kid, like, keep in mind, this is 2004. This isn't something that's on when Fat Albert is seen everywhere and everyone knows who he is. Like, the levels of ridiculousness that this movie goes to is insane. And, like, Reggie's plan does not make any sense whatsoever. He's literally an attention whore. He reminds me of Taye Diggs in Equilibrium. Like, in Equilibrium, Taye Diggs is the character where he plays it over the top. He gloats over the fact that he caught Christian Bale crying and that, he's feeling, and let me just go ahead and eat up all the scenery that I can. Like, he's a shallow villain and an attention whore, and Fat Albert just scoots him off like a fly, and, like, that's the end of that storyline. And so, after a really ridiculous skateboarding sequence, because this was 2004, and, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was still a thing, supposedly, but yeah, so they eventually get back into television, and it recuts to the episode they were in beforehand, so I guess there's only 3 episodes that TV Land has available to them, I guess, but, yeah, so they give the lesson, and you think it's all over, and then the stupidest, most sappiest, most ridiculous, emotionally manipulative part of the movie comes in play, where Cosby and his friends, who were in his routines, and then were characters of the show, stand in front of the old friend Albert Robertson's grave. As the camera pans on each of the men, images of their counterparts are seen. Doris watches them. The old men race away, as if still kids at heart. The same kids from the TV show that helped Bill Cosby inspired. My God, you cannot come up with something more forced and more Hallmark Channel-esque than they do here. And I get it. Tie it back into the old routines, but there's got to be a better way to do it than this manipulative Lifetime Channel, Collateral Beauty, Xfinity Christmas ad level of emotional bullshit. You're only doing this to get a cheap tear out of the audience, and that's like there's a message to the whole thing. The only message this movie is giving you is that Fat Albert is a beloved franchise that we just want to destroy because we're 20th Century Fox. Cough up the cash. That's really the best way to describe this movie in general. It's a disappointment, and a bad disappointment. You've got the creator right there. He should tell you how the character should act, but no, the movie just feels like a cash grab and a bad one. They waste so much potential with the movie. They try to update the animation, and it goes against everything that the show stood for. They try to do the fish out of water story, and it fails miserably. They try to go for the cheapest, most manipulous ways to get an emotion out of you, and it fails miserably. It's a movie that's a massive failure and a huge disservice to the show itself. You're better off just watching the original cartoons. It still holds up. The movie does not, and it's just one of those examples of 20th Century Fox taking yet another beloved franchise and just ruining it. Plain and simple, just avoid it like the plague. Granted, it's better than Garfield or the Alvin and the Chipmunks sequels, but that really is not saying a whole lot. That's like saying I found $20 in a steaming pile of garbage. I had to dig all the way through it, but I found $20. Are you really satisfied with yourself? I certainly don't think so. But, so that's 13 minutes of your time wasted talking about this. Let's talk about another movie that's a waste of time, Darkness.
Lights out. We discovered
Now, why would you release this on Christmas Day? Oh, wait. I know the reason why, because this is a movie that was actually shot in 2002 and was sitting on the shelf at Miramax Films for 2 years, and then they decided, you know what? Fuck it. Put it in theaters on Christmas Day. I guess it wasn't a bad mistake, because it did end up becoming a hit. Made like 3 times back its budget, but do you remember this movie? Because I sure as hell don't. I do remember that apparently last time I talked about this on the Coming Up thing last time around, I said it was produced by Wes Craven, and no, this is not produced by Wes Craven, unfortunately. I mean, it would not have surprised me if it actually was, but no, it wasn't. But you do have Anna Paquin in here. It's a movie that, stop me if you've heard this before. It follows an American family who moves into a house in the Spanish countryside where 6 children disappear during an occult ritual 40 years before. The teenage daughter and young son of the father are subjected to increasing disturbances in the house. Amityville Horror, The Grudge, Poltergeist. Yeah, I think all that's in here. And, yeah, the movie is not great either. And you can tell why it was sitting on a shelf for 2 years. Like, I don't even understand how the hell this made the money that it did. I mean, it's a movie that really, really just feels like a film that has nothing of value to it whatsoever. It's a boring movie. The scares are not interesting. You know, the taglines in that trailer alone are some of the most cliched riddled lines you can use in this movie here. I mean, it's ridiculously lazy too, and it's just like there's even elements of child abuse in here which don't make a whole lot of sense in here in general. Like, how does that even? It's trying to have a statement about child abuse, and it's just like, this is not the type of movie to be doing that with. And even then, it's just like, there's nothing of value to this movie whatsoever. There's atmosphere in here, there's tension that could maybe work if you had an interesting storyline to work with here, but unfortunately, there's just nothing of value to it. I think everybody was completely wasted. Nothing of value happens in here. Just a bad movie. Just a really, really bad movie. So yeah, Darkness. Quite frankly, we don't know how it became a hit, but it did. So on to the next movie, and that is Joel Schumacher's adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera. And that is all I can show you from the trailer, because I ain't getting copyright blocked for that. Now watch me get a copyright strike for, not even a copyright strike, but a copyright notice for something else in this video. But I'm certainly not going to show you the full trailer then, unfortunately, because that trailer, most of it is music from the show itself. I don't think I need to tell you what the story of the Phantom of the Opera is, but if you don't know it, it begins when an opera ghost terrorizes the cast and crew of the French opera house while tutoring a chorus girl. He finally drives the lead soprano crazy, and so she and her friend leave. The girl is able to sing lead one night, but the soprano doesn't want her show stolen, so she comes back. The ghost demands that they keep giving his protege lead roles. Meanwhile, his pupil falls in love with the Vicomte de Chanay, but the Phantom is in love with Christine, her student. The Phantom being played by Gerard Butler, and Christine played by Emmy Rossum from The Day After Tomorrow. The Phantom is outraged by their love and kidnaps Christine to be his eternal bride. Will Raoul the Vicomte be able to stop this dastardly plan? And this version is actually the second version we've looked at on this show. We looked at the Robert Englund version in 1989, which is definitely going for more of the horror aspect of it, but this is more straight in line with the Andrew Lloyd Webber version of it. And it gets kind of a bad rap, but honestly, I've seen worse. I've seen Les Miserables. I've seen a lot of these musicals that are not as strong as they should be, but this is just, it's passable. I mean, really, there's nothing really bad about it, per se. The visuals, I think, are very good. The acting overall, I think, is very good. I like Gerard Butler as the Phantom. Emmy Rossum and Patrick Wilson are very good in here, too. You've got Miranda Richardson, Minnie Driver, Kieran Hines. Sometimes the music can be really good. I like Gerard Butler's version of the song from the trailer. The singing in here is not the greatest overall, but I liked his version of the Phantom song from the trailer there. If you watch the trailer, you can tell what I'm talking about. But most of the songs themselves are just okay. The writing and direction's a little bit off, though, and they add some stuff that are devoid from the stage version of the show that feels kind of unnecessary to add into it. And it's not a perfect adaptation by any means necessary. It's a movie that like, I really don't know what the best version of the storyline really could be. I mean, the Robert Englund version is a fun version just to see, you know, Freddy Krueger do a version of the storyline here. I'm trying to see if there's any other versions of here that, Phantom of the Paradise maybe, but then again, it's been a while since I've seen that one. But other than that, though, yeah, it's, like I said, it's not a bad version of the story. It's done. There have been much worse versions of the storyline. There have been much worse musicals that are similar to this. Like I said, Les Miserables, I think, is worse when it comes to their singing. That's not really there. You know, Mamma Mia is another example where the singing by the actors isn't really that good. This is about good enough to say that it's a passable attempt. At least in my opinion, it's a passable attempt. But who knows? I might be the only one that thinks that. But I think it's fine for what it is. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, but just fine for what it is overall. So, not much more to say about the Phantom of the Opera. Let's go ahead and move on to the last movie we have here, which is Don Cheadle in Hotel Rwanda.
Presents the true story of a man who fought impossible odds.
I cannot leave these people to die.
To save everyone he could.
They say you led the massacres. You will tell them the truth. I will tell them nothing unless you help me.
And created a place.
Go inside the hotel.
Where hope survived.
You are a good man, Paul. We need to help one another. That is the only thing that is keeping us alive.
Hotel Rwanda.
The better Don Cheadle movie to come out in December 2004, besides Ocean's 12. But in this movie, you have Don Cheadle and Sofia Okonedo as hoteler Paul, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Paul Rusesabagina and his wife Tatiana, based on the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, which occurred during the spring of 1994. It documents Paul's efforts to save the lives of his family and more than 1,000 other refugees by providing them with a shelter in the besieged Hotel des Mille Collines. Hotel Rwanda explores genocide, political corruption, and the repercussions of violence. So, kind of similar to Schindler's List in a way, except this one takes place, obviously, in Rwanda instead of, you know, Holocaust Germany. But it's a pretty good movie. It's a really good film. I think introduced people to Don Cheadle as a serious actor overall. I think the acting overall is very good. Joaquin Phoenix has a good role in here. So does Nick Nolte. The story overall is very good. It's a very intense film. The emotional moments, I think, work very well here in general. And like I said, it's really focusing on Don Cheadle as the main focus of why the movie works so well, because it's a movie that shows that, hey, this guy has a lot of serious acting chops that could benefit him in the near future. And he's been starring in movies since then that have shown what a great actor he can really be. I mean, he's very good in the film. He plays the role very well. This director, Terry George, does a very good job of handling the script for this as well. He also would later go on to do Reservation Road, which was alright for what it was, but I think this is overall his strongest film in general. A really good film overall. Not much more to say about this one, but it's definitely one that, if you like stuff like Schindler's List or like some criminally underrated works like Cry Freedom with Denzel Washington and Tim Robbins. It was Tim Robbins, right? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Hold on, let me just double check here, because I'm pretty sure it's Kevin Kline. I'm sorry, it's Kevin Kline. I think Tim Robbins was in a movie that was similar to this, Catch a Fire, which came out a couple years later, but yeah, Cry Freedom is definitely a movie that reminds me of this film a lot. Hotel Rwanda, a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out.
You're my new boss. It's quite a kung fu grip you got.
Sometimes
Is it like 1,000 degrees in here, or is it me? What's new?
it's not about getting ahead.
Who's that? Dad's new boss. He's a lot younger than you.
It's about getting a life.
Let's get out of here.
Sure.
This isn't what it looks like.
Dad!
It's my boss, Alex.
From the director of About a Boy.
You have a family that loves you. How do you do it?
In good company.
She's a smart, terrific woman. Girl. Or smart young lady. Whatever.
Rated PG-13.
So it's essentially Eric Foreman being the boss of Jaeger Clade and also dating his daughter, Mindy the Mermaid from the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, or Black Widow, whichever one you want to go with here. Yeah, they pretty much give you the plot itself here. Dennis Quaid plays a 51-year-old executive who learns that his company is being restructured and he is being demoted. Carter, played by Topher Grace, who is 26, replaces him. Dan, who has two teenage daughters with another on the way. The other daughter is played by Zena Grey, who you'll recognize from Snow Day and also later on The Shaggy Dog, decides to suck it up and work for Carter. Dan and Carter's working relationship is tested when Carter begins a relationship with Alex, played by Joe Hansen, who is Dan's daughter. This comes from the same team that brought us About a Boy, the Weitses, Paul and Chris Weitz. And for the most part, the movie is really good. I think a lot of the actors in here are very good here. You got a great cast. I mentioned Quaid, Grace, and Johansson. I think they work off each other very well. Mark Helgenberger's also in here from CSI, Clark Gregg, David Paymer, Selma Blair, Ty Burrell, Frankie Faison, Philip Baker Hall, Lauren Tom, John Cho, Colleen Camp, Malcolm McDowell. There's a strong cast in this movie. And it's an interesting idea that, honestly, most people can relate to this situation when somebody comes in that's much older than you are, basically takes your job and then gives you, puts you in a situation here. And in this case, it's a situation where he's not only losing his job, but his daughter's falling in love with the boss in general. And like I said, everything about the movie is really good. If there's one nitpick I have with the film, it's Topher Grace. And like I said, he's good in the movie, but the thing with Topher Grace when it comes to his film roles is that it's really hard to, take the character of Eric Foreman out of the play for him, because everyone knows Topher Grace as Eric Foreman from That 70s Show, and we saw that earlier in the year with Win a Date with Tad Hamilton, and even later on when he played Venom in Spider-Man 3, it was just hard not to see him as this character, because it's really hard to see him not play that character we see on That 70s Show in these different roles, these radically different roles. It's like the thing with him is that he can't really figure out how to distance himself from the TV show character we know him for and the movie character. Kind of like with Ray Romano also early in the year with Welcome to Mooseport, where, you see him and it's just like, it's Ray Barone pretty much. But like I said, he's good in the movie, and he does have a nice chemistry with Scarlett Johansson. And Dennis Quaid I thought was really good too. I'm glad to see that he's ending the year on a high note after The Alamo and The Flight of the Phoenix. But yeah, other than that though, it's a really good film, and the Weitzes do a very good job of handling this. It's another really good film from them. 4 for 4 at this point, because they also did American Pie, Down to Earth, and the aforementioned About a Boy. But I've seen the films they made afterwards, and enjoy it while it lasts, because the next couple movies they made, actually everything they've done in the 20 years since has not been as good. There's been a couple little bits of movies here and there that are actually kind of good, but for the most part, yeah, this is probably their last great film that they did before they eventually went on to direct other movies, and like I said, hasn't really gotten better since then. But anyway, that's In Good Company. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other Scarlett Johansson movie that came out this weekend, A Love Song for Bobby Long, also starring John Travolta and Gabriel Macht. Yeah, definitely the one that has higher ambitions to it, but it's clearly an Oscar bait movie and not really a good one. John Travolta plays the title character of Bobby Long, who's an aging alcoholic, and Scarlett Johansson is this headstrong young woman who returns to New Orleans after her estranged mother's death. And there's also Gabriel Macht, who she ends up falling in love with, and Deborah Kara Unger, Clayne Crawford. But yeah, other than that, though, this is the movie that I saw way back in the day, because I did like Scarlett. I still like Scarlett Johansson, but anything that she was in, I was usually going to watch it. I watched it, and yeah, it's pretty much what you think it is. It's a movie that's at high ambitions or Oscar consideration. It's probably not going to get it in general here. Certainly not going to get it after you see the results for it. But I think Scarlett Johansson got her 3rd Golden Globe nomination in a row, so I guess that works out in her favor. But other than that, though, yeah, the movie is pretty generic. I mean, the writing overall isn't really that strong. The story and the relationships aren't really that great in general. I keep wanting to say Johnny Depp for some reason. John Travolta and Scarlett Johansson are fine in the movie, I guess. They don't really do anything that's spectacular or engaging whatsoever. Neither does really Gabriel Macht in general, but it's a film that clearly knows what it's trying to go for, and it didn't work out in the end. But hey, that's not going to stop any of these people from moving on from something like this. This is a type of film that, yeah, you hope that's going to get nominated for several awards, but it never really did that. It's a film that is very much an Oscar baity film, but not a bad type of film. It's not a bad type of film, just a film that's just very generic, very lackluster, and very forgettable. And yeah, it's a very forgettable movie. So that's the last film we have of 2004, at least from the release weeks, A Love Song for Bobby Long.